Hi everyone, Elite Assassin here, and today I want to talk to you guys about Halo Infinite and some of my fears, concerns, and just overall ideas going on in my head about Halo Infinite. Now, a lot of this is going to be mostly speculation on my part, and me just talking about how I feel about the situation and how we've had to deal with recent Halo launches while under 343. Now, as the Xbox July showcase comes closer and the countdown begins until we finally, hopefully, see some Halo Infinite gameplay, it's hard not to get excited. Honestly, with everything going on in the world, Halo had not been high on my priority list until some of my Halo friends started a game night one Friday night. Playing with the old Halo 4 crew really reminded me of why this series is so great, and it started to make me excited for new Halo news. Throughout the next few weeks, we continue to have game nights off and on, and a lot of topics regarding Halo Infinite came up in conversation. And I think one thing that everyone can agree on is that Halo Infinite better be complete on launch. Now 343 has had a really rocky relationship with the Halo fanbase for most of its existence, and they came on strong releasing the much-needed TU update for Reach, but then they didn't fully implement it, which in my opinion wasn't the right move. I liked Halo Reach much better on the title update settings, and was really disheartened that some playlists, all the ones that I like to play, stayed but under the banner of original Reach, which in my opinion wasn't great at all. But that's just my lack of love for the Halo Reach armor abilities. Then we have Halo 4 and Halo 5 launching while missing key features and game types. I won't even touch the mess that was, and even to a point continues to be, the Master Chief Collection. In my mind, this is 343's third shot at a full-fledged Halo game, and it's their most important project to date. I think for many older fans of the series, this game can really be their 3 strikes and you're out entry if it fails to deliver a complete package on release. It's also most likely going to be a big game for the Xbox Series X, so it has to be their killer app, and it has to deliver on launch, right when you install it or download it, whatever. When you boot that game up, it has to be all there. Now, I don't like being overly negative or critical in my videos, and I try really hard not to be, but I just have this really bad feeling in my gut when it comes to Halo Infinite. The lack of any information or release of a beta that we were promised with every future Halo title seems kind of telling. There's also the fact that Halo Infinite is going to launch on the Xbox One, the Series X, and PC, which is a big step up for the Halo franchise, and something that they've never really done. Considering 343 hasn't given us a complete game on one platform, it's really concerning that they're attempting to deliver on 3 this time. The unfortunate reality of the pandemic we find ourselves in does not do anything to help alleviate my uneasy feeling either. Everyone has to make sacrifices during these times, but 343 really isn't in a position where they can launch an unfinished game and get away scot-free. It really is kind of a shame, because this would be the one time where it'd be completely understandable, but they've burned that bridge way too many times at this point. Now, also, they've had 5 years since the last major Halo release, so saying you lost, well, I guess losing most of 1 year will kind of kill that, but still, they've had 4 other years, so there's got to be some really good progress done prior to this. I know there's a lot of crunch, but come on. Now, as I mentioned before, one major thing that has me worried, and is something that they've been way too quiet about, is the beta. Now, we were promised a meaningful beta for all future Halo titles, and they're running out of time to give us one. At this point, I'm expecting, and this might sound a little crazy, but I'm expecting that we're not only going to see Halo gameplay in July, but we're also going to have the beta releasing that day as well. we only have around 4 or 5 months realistically until Infinite's release, and we need to have a beta as soon as possible. When you look back at Halo 5's beta, it had almost a year before the game launched, and it was in a pretty decent state at that time. With the Halo 5 beta being so early, they were able to make quite a few changes to the game after getting fan feedback. Now, they have half the time and 3 times the platforms to make these changes on. If we don't get at least a beta release date or time frame, it might be a very telling sign of the state the game's in. At this point, it's hard to see fan feedback really having much of an impact on the overall game, with maybe the exception of a day one patch. Now, the fact we haven't seen anything gameplay-wise could mean a variety of things. It could mean they don't want to show the game as they know fans might react really negatively and want way too many changes that they can realistically make in the amount of time they have. Now, another could be that they believe they've taken the multiplayer in a direction that people will want to play and they feel very confident in, and the beta won't see fans calling for extreme changes. As I'm somewhat of an optimist, I'm banking it on being more the latter than the former. And honestly, I really hope that's the case. I honestly feel that the multiplayer is where 343 is going to have the hardest task ahead of them. Now, I'll get to the campaigns a little later, because they've been a little iffy on those, but I really want to stick with the multiplayer for now. I've seen a few people recently saying that no matter what, the Halo community will not agree with the direction that Infinite's multiplayer is going to go. And I am inclined to agree, but not for the overly negative reason you might think. Instead, I agree because of what draws me so much to Halo in the first place, and that's its diversity. Halo caters to such a diverse amount of communities, it's going to be almost really impossible to make a game everyone will agree with 100%. What they can do, however, is make a very solid, well-balanced core experience that'll be good and can be adapted by each of these different communities for their own needs. Put short, have a game that out of the box is basically what the competitive settings should be. These settings will be good for the competitive, and the casual community really won't know as long as they're not too overly punishing. Which, look back at older Halos, 3, 2, they really did strike that balance. As long as you have things for the custom game community to work with, they'll be happy. As long as Forge is there and the game and the feel of the game works well with a lot of game types and maps they make, they'll be happy. As long as, like I said, campaign, there's a lot of people who love campaigns and speedrunning and all that stuff. As long as the game feels good, they'll be happy. That's the one thing they really have to focus on. Now, again, back just to multiplayer. In my opinion, 343 went in a good direction from Halo 4 to Halo 5, even if some of my friends don't necessarily agree. Halo 4 was a much more casual game that was full of pub stomping and had a lot of different systems and stuff that felt very foreign to Halo. You had the loadouts, you had the kill streaks, you had, weapons on maps that didn't spawn on timers but randomly just dropped in wherever they felt like it, wherever they felt like it. It was very weird and did not feel very Halo at all. But, in contrast to that, Halo 5 abandoned a lot of those systems I mentioned from Halo 4 and went back to, even starts, and it kind of retained much more of a competitive community than Halo 4 did, which is, I think, part of the reason a lot of my friends don't like it, due to the more sweaty nature of matches, even in the social settings. But, even back in Halo 3, and I know my friends always probably want me to shut about this, but, in Halo 3, toward the end of its life cycle, it was a very competitive game still. A lot of people who still played it were very competitive, but it was still a really fun game. I guess maybe that's just my preference, and I do tend to lean more toward the competitive side, and agree with those people when it comes to decisions based on how the gameplay should feel. It's my hope that Halo Infinite continues to create a well-balanced competitive experience for its online multiplayer where everyone can kind of be happy. Now, is that a pipe dream? Yes, but it's what I hope for. I would also be 100% for having options to turn on all kinds of crazy, game-breaking, weird abilities and systems, or whatever you want, in the custom games and in Forge. But just leave the normal Slayer, CTF game types competitive, please. No more flag numbers and stuff. Since I mentioned custom games, I really hope that we have a great selection of game types to work with. It's one thing 343 has been really bad at. Also, in Halo 5, we eventually got a custom games browser, which was awesome, but it didn't come in until really late in its life cycle, so I don't think it really got used to its full potential. The combination of having a good, solid amount of game types and not having 343 eliminate game types just so they can spotlight their new ones, which they've unfortunately been very famous for, and having a good custom games browser and having a good Forge will really help Halo Infinite keep some good positive momentum right from launch. It's really sad to think that if Halo 5 had all these features there when it launched, it could have been better received by the community and it would have increased its life cycle. Because, eventually we got the custom game browser, but how many people used it by then? A lot of the new day one purchase people, we lost, you lose a lot of your population just in general when it comes to online games after the first few months, after that honeymoon period wears off. But at least we might have been able to retain some more with, having that fun custom game thing around so people could find the games they wanted to play instead of hoping that their friends wanted to play what they wanted to play, or that they could find people on forums to do that with. How the game plays is going to be very important. However, what you play on while playing the game types is also equally as important. So one thing I want to bring up right now is map design. And I'm going to start off with bringing up a subject I wasn't really sure if I was going to touch or not, but it is really important when it comes to map design, and that is Halo's most debated and, in a lot of circles, most hated feature, Sprint. By now, if you're in the know or if you've been a fan of Halo for a while, you kind of know that Halo maps have been enlarged to deal with the mobility that Sprint, and to a lesser extent, the armor abilities provide. This has caused matches to go on a lot longer than they need to, despite some people claiming Sprint makes the game more fast-paced. And it makes the maps just larger and just not as well designed as they have been in the past. It is kind of funny that I'm going to use Halo CE, and it might not be the best example because its spawning system might have something to do with this. But if you were to go on to MCC and play a few games of Combat Evolved, it's 4v4, 2v2 Slayer, and then go on to Halo 5 and play 4v4 Slayer on there, you'll see how much faster paced MCC is than Halo 5, and that your matches, your average match time in a 4v4 Halo CE compared to a Halo 5 4v4 will be much shorter in CE. The game that doesn't have sprint or any weird clamber or movement abilities. They're quicker matches. Like I said, some of it has to do with the fact that you spawn within 14 meters of one of your live allies, so if someone's on a killing spree, they're going to find you quicker, unfortunately. It also has to do with the fact that the maps were designed without sprint, so you run into people more often. At least that's how it feels. As you can probably tell, I prefer Halo Infinite to not have sprint, and instead maybe have a higher than usual base movement speed. In my opinion, it would make the game feel a lot better and allow for better map design and map size. I know I got away on a little bit of sprint tangent there, but it does have to do with maps. And another big issue 343 has had with maps is just a lack of good original design and reliance on remakes. Halo 4 had very few good maps outside of Haven, and I'd argue Halo 5 had very good maps outside of Coliseum. And Halo 5 had remakes of older maps and had the remixes of the maps they made, which weren't the best to begin with. And in fact, I think Coliseum, my favorite map, didn't even get a remix. So, I'm not quite sure why that is. I don't know if that's because of a lack of talent in the map design department, which honestly, personally, I doubt, or if having to design around the armor abilities and sprint just led to a lot of lackluster maps. And this also mostly applies to their 4v4 maps. In terms of big team battle, Halo Infinite needs to have actual developer-made maps. The decision to have Warzone be like the BTB of Halo 5 in the beginning, and to not have actual non-Forge BTB maps, I think was a huge mistake, and one that really led to Halo 5 Big Team Battle not being as fun as it could be. Now, they did add a lot of great user-created and their created Forge maps, but Forge maps, though looking better, just aren't the same, and it'd been nice to see some really creatively made Big Team Battle maps. One of the many problems 343 has had when developing the original Halo games is they seem to be chasing trends. Now, as I mentioned before, in Halo 4 you can kind of look at Call of Duty, as unfair as it might sound. I think it's the best comparison. They looked at Call of Duty and went, hey, let's add loadouts and kill streaks. When you go to Halo 5, you go, oh look, advanced movement's really hot right now. Let's add these armor abilities that are like, clamber, and thank goodness they didn't add wall running, because that would have been a little too much. I know myself and some of my friends were a little hopeful they weren't adding that in Halo 5, but you didn't know, with the thrust and everything, you saw they were going for more advanced, mobility, and that was all the rage then. Now we're kind of in this weird end of the Battle Royale cycle that also sees a lot of season passes going on. So, who knows what they're going to kind of go after next, and really I hope in a way they don't. It's been a topic of conversation for a while of whether or not Halo needs a Battle Royale. And personally, I don't think I would mind if they added one post-launch, but it should not be made a priority at the expense of other core Halo features like Theater, Forge, or custom game types. I honestly feel a Battle Royale where you drop in it like an ODST and have that kind of shielding system where it doesn't regenerate and you have to find health packs could be a really cool idea. I feel like if they mix, like I said, being an ODST, dropping in like that, having that style of Battle Royale where you find weapons on the ground, you something to find armor, health. They take that and mix that with AI enemies like Warzone and Firefight have, and you could have a really unique and fun mode. Instead of just finding beam rifles or hammers on the ground, say you and your squad have to actively take out a group of Covenant to get those weapons, or to kill Covenant that are guarding a weapon shipment they have. Stuff like that. Adding these kind of missions onto it to make it more than just what it was, and combine what they have that's already great to make it a really interesting experience that's all their own. and make it more unique than just a copy-paste that they kind of been going for recently. And also, while they're at this, make it an extra free-to-play mode like Call of Duty did post-launch. I think they'd have a hit. Imagine if Halo had a Battle Royale that, while it's part of Infinite, also was a free-to-play entity that anyone can download. It might make more people interested in Halo Infinite itself. And I think, honestly, in this day and age, if you're going to launch a Battle Royale, it better be free, because otherwise you are really selling yourself short, because the barrier of entry to free is nothing. If people have to buy your $6 game to get into the Battle Royale, they're just going to go, I'll play the free stuff. You know what I mean? Okay, now finally to the campaign. When it comes down to campaigns, like I said before, 343's had mixed results. As someone who's read a few of the books, including the Forerunner trilogy, I really enjoyed Halo 4's story. Seeing the Didact and the Librarian on screen, and seeing the Didact use his arm ability to grab Chief and throw him around was really cool and just awesome after reading the books. And I think the emotional tone of the story was very well done. It really showcased the relationship of Master Chief and Cortana, and it made her sacrifice at the end that much more impactful. By comparison, Halo 5 felt like a hot mess. Now, the excellent marketing campaign of Hunt the Truth had a big part in making the story feel so flat. Except this big conspiracy that really didn't exist in the game. The whole why is Chief turning on the UNSC? Is Chief to blame for settlements being destroyed by the Guardians? It never existed. It was really awesome, well done, well acted, had no effect on the game. And honestly, it was a much better story and a much more intriguing story than what we got in the game. One thing is, as a fan of the books, I was so excited to see Blue Team finally in the game. And part of me feels like they got the personality of the characters right, but they were just really, really poorly fleshed out in game. One of my favorite characters, Fred, in the books, did have his sarcastic tone to him and his joking tone, but you didn't get to really know him. And, you didn't get to see how they were. I don't know, it was a huge, huge letdown. And it felt like they were just trying to pull too much in and have too many different threads that it ended up just a big tangled mess. You had to fit Chief and Blue Team, and then you have Locke and Team Osiris, and develop all those characters and have them come together and have it work, and it didn't. It just really, truly didn't. So, I really hope for Infinite 343 can look to, the storytelling that made 4 great and that made past Halo games great and build off that. We got that new teaser recently that was, really interesting and hopefully shows a good direction the game will go in. While I haven't personally played Halo Wars 2 yet, I have heard great things about the campaign. We don't know if Halo Infinite is going to be following directly after where 5 left off, or if it's going to be some kind of weird, soft, reset thing. But hopefully it will be an epic campaign that we can all enjoy, and a story that is very well told. With Halo Infinite, 343 has a lot to prove to us and to themselves. As I said before, lackluster content in their launches and outright disaster of MCC has really left a stain on 343's reputation with the fanbase. I really truly don't doubt the employees at 343 really care about Halo and want it to succeed. They want to make a great game that everyone will enjoy. And I really hope that Halo Infinite is a step in the right direction. And that this game will give the fan base some faith in 343. I know I spent most of this going over the flaws of Halo under 343 and kind of really putting those under a microscope. But I only do that because I feel like you really can't get better without looking at and understanding your own flaws. Later this month, we're finally get to see and maybe get an idea, what Halo Infinite is and if 343 really has looked at their past endeavors and learned from their mistakes. I really hope they have. I can't wait to bring you guys some Halo Infinite content, and I hope it's something that we can all be excited for. I know this has been kind of a really long video, and thank you so much for sticking in there. Let me know in the comments what your hopes are for Halo Infinite. Do you have any, game types you specifically want to see come back? Are you more of a Forge person? Do you have any weird theories about where the campaign's going to go? Let me know. I want to hear them all. I'm really hyped for Halo news, and I definitely like to deep dive into some just good comments. Alright, thank you guys so much for, sticking through this video. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully we will get some news that we'll all enjoy. Thank you guys again so much, and I'll talk to you later.